Welcome to At the Fence Line with your hosts, Sarah Chambers and Gavin Benker.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome here. Gavin, how are you doing today?
Hey, Sarah. Doing good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I am doing excellent. It's a really big week for us. There's two reasons why it's a big week, and I'm just going to dive in and start talking about it, if that's cool with you.
Yes.
So first off, it's Pumpkin Spice Week. That's a big deal. I'm excited. So we're back, pumpkin spice season, which also means it's harvest, of course. You know, there's other important things going on that are a little bit more relevant to the podcast. But because it's pumpkin spice season, that also means that I'm full of espresso and pumpkin flavored milk. So that's a great way to start the day. Recipe for success, I'd say.
It's already pumpkin spice season. I thought that's like October.
Nope, it's now. It's right now.
Oh,
So
there's probably Halloween candy on the shelves already anyway, so.
yeah, it gets earlier and earlier every year. But so that's the number one reason why it's a great week for us. The number two reason, less important. No, it's just as important. We got our first voice note. Yay! Air horn sound effects. Very exciting. So we received a voice note, a listener voice note on our last episode that we did about communication. They just wanted us to dive into a little bit more detail. So we're going to play the voice note now.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, Gavin. I just wanted to send this little message here and say I absolutely loved the episode on communication. I think it's really important. I myself am a fourth generation poultry farmer. However, I am having a bit of a hard time getting started with my dad on communication. Do you guys have any tips and tricks for me? Thanks.
So Gavin, hearing that, what do you think?
Oh, it's a really insightful comment / question. And it makes me think that, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
we got into communication and how to formalize and add some best practices and get the communication ball rolling. But getting that first meeting there is a step before that. There is. So thanks to our listener for sending that in. So I guess first thoughts on the comment / question is at Baxwath, we often consult with our clients who've already got that first step done. And so they've taken a few steps down the road and maybe then realized that they could use an outside advisor or some additional help. And then, of course, a lot of our work is completely unrelated to that, right? So we don't come across this too often. It's not to say that we don't. I do talk to young farmers or senior generation farmers at trade shows, and they'll ask that question. How do we get the first meeting? How do we get that initial ball rolling? And, again, often it's pretty straightforward. Call a meeting, right? And you call a meeting and people show up and there you go. You've kind of got it started. But sometimes it's not that straightforward. There's pushback. There's maybe a lack of understanding of the potential benefits, and we'll get into that a little bit in this episode. So those are my initial thoughts. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think those are great kind of first comments to kick it off. I want to take the opportunity before we dive in and kind of give our feedback on the question to just really prompt the people that are listening to this to not only think about today's topic in the context that it was submitted in that question, because that was, intergenerational, directly related to some of the more like business level discussions and the barrier to having them. But there's a lot of other situations where this could apply. I mean, it could be as big as conversations about transition. Maybe people on the farm are having productive meetings about operations, but there's bigger topics that they're just not able to talk to each other about, not able to get people to agree to come to the table. So, it's not just about the first meeting in the operational sense, but it could be about a totally different topic like transition or succession planning. And then the other thing is that I don't want people to just think about it in the sense of senior generation and next generation like it was in the submitted question, because it could be business partners as well. It could be people that are at an equal level. Maybe one is like really interested in introducing some more formal processes and procedures, and the other one's like, why, like things are good the way they are, why do we need to change things, why do we need to start having meetings or start having these types of discussions. So I think that it's important for people listening to realize that, this could apply in a lot of different situations, not just the one that we receive the voice note about.
Yeah, excellent. That's great context. Uh,
Yeah,
so I think maybe it's time to get into some kind of tips and tricks or best
absolutely.
practices, our advice, so to speak. So the first thing that I want to say is start really small. So if you're getting some of that pushback or not even maybe pushback, but just deference, people just saying, whatever, I don't want to have a meeting. Um, Try starting just really small. Have a 10-15 minute meeting, kind of a plan to plan meeting. That sometimes can get somebody over the hump, get a little bit of momentum going and go from there. Um, don't try to add any topics or try to achieve or accomplish too much in that meeting. Just kind of getting somebody to sit down at the table or in the office, wherever the space is, and have a talk about the potential to have meetings. So just start really small.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great.
Um, Another thing, kind of just related to that, is when you're talking about it, maybe you're talking about it in the shop, or maybe you're on the radio or on the phone. One thing that I would suggest is if you see a window of opportunity or you see a slight crack in that other person's kind of defenses about this, right? Take it, take that advantage and say, okay, how about next week? How about tomorrow? How about later today? It's all about kind of reading the room and reading that other person. And if you see a little bit of, okay, I'm starting to become a little bit more willing, take that opportunity. Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah. I think from my perspective, especially throwing it back to our other episode about communication and some of those good strategies, tips, and tricks that we gave for effective communication. One of the things is approaching with curiosity. That's like something people hear me say on repeat. So I think my number one thing for getting to the table, if someone's resisting that, make sure you're asking why. Okay. Don't just get frustrated that they don't want to talk to you. Figure out what it is that's really stopping them. You might have assumptions of what it is that's keeping them from wanting to have that conversation, but they might not be accurate. So rather than getting frustrated based off of what you're assuming, ask why. Why don't you want to talk about this? And the whole goal with asking why is not to create conflict, but rather to give you the opportunity to remove some of those barriers. I think that that's really important to keep things open. It's also just, it wouldn't just be a flat no, then there's the opportunity to kind of keep things going, and to not just, have things stop in like at one moment.
Yeah.
Something that we hear a lot, like real farm example, is when it comes to transition. So, like I mentioned earlier, is oftentimes there are non-working people on the farm or sort of like family members that are off the farm. And senior generation says that, okay, when transition time comes, when I'm ready to retire, things are getting divided 50-50, regardless of who's working on the farm or not. And that's it. I don't, like end of discussion, end of story. That's what I've told the accountant. That's what I've told the lawyers. We're not talking about it anymore. So in a situation like that, it really tricky situation, first of all, not something easy to talk about, but rather than just getting frustrated and allowing things to be shut down, you could say, that's fine. And I respect your opinion, but I'd just like to understand it better. Right now, I don't understand why that's what you've decided. Would you be willing to just take 10 minutes over a cup of coffee to tell me why that's the decision that you've made?
Yeah.
Great,
I'm
not leaving the door open.
yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I just want to make a mental note. There's something that I'd like to add to that, but I think you've got another tip to share.
Yeah, for sure. And so, like the other thing would be totally tied to what I just said is to really prepare for the discussion to have the discussion. We're like inception level communication today. It's like prepare for the ask to have the meeting, and you have to prepare for the meeting too. But anyway, so I would really advise people to prepare for that conversation where you're going to ask for the meeting and think about the pushback that you might get so that you can maybe pre have solutions in mind. Like think about the pushback and have solutions ready in hand. Have your why ready, like, kind of center yourself in the way that you want to approach the conversation so there's not tons of emotions in it. But really, really prepare for how you're going to ask. And I mean, prepare even as much as what time of day, is it don't ask me for something before I've had coffee. Answer is a flat no every time. So what time of day are you asking that person? What day of the week is it? That might have an effect on some people's, willingness. What month of the year is it? Especially in our industry, asking to have a conversation about transition in the middle of seating. I mean, I don't think anybody would do it, but, just be cognizant of, again, those barriers that someone might have to wanting to sit down and have that conversation with you. But you had a point to make. Well, I'm curious what it was.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to ask you. So, does that mean that if I have some like tricky or difficult things to ask you, I should be doing it during pumpkin spice season?
You've known me for 5 years, Gavin. We've worked together. You should know that about me by now.
I
Luckily,
didn't know.
they've extended pumpkin spice season, so you're good for like half the year. It's just the other half when, I'm a bit scary.
Well, I do know how much you like your coffee, but I didn't know quite how much you liked pumpkin spice. So that is something
Wow.
new.
It's like a
Okay.
millennial thing.
All right. So before we get too far off track, yeah, I wanted to add another, I guess, piece of advice. So if you are preparing for that, like you said, you're preparing to have that conversation, and you've got um, your plan for how to ask why and time of day and all that stuff. Another thing that you might want to slide in. So let's say you ask why and the person starts to talk and they're still a bit hesitant. One thing that you can add is start to highlight a little bit of the benefits. Like, so what are we going to benefit from having these meetings? And like you said, there are maybe some big things that are part of the reason why this other person doesn't want to sit down at the table. But often looking at formalizing communication or doing that as well within a succession planning context doesn't mean that you are going to quickly solve uh, the big questions, the big issues that are maybe preventing the communication. There are, and I see this with my clients all the time, there are short-term benefits that you get from formalizing communication, starting to approach farm management more as a formalized role or function on the farm, taking a look at the farm from a different lens, from a different point of context, looking at things like your HR strategy, where you are financially, what are your goals and your objectives in the coming years or months, because some of that stuff can prompt new ideas. You can discover efficiencies, and create a better alignment between management, finance, and your vision. So those benefits, if you can kind of weave that into the conversation, might help bring the conversation to get that initial conversation going.
And I think as well, that ties so nicely into what I was saying about preparation because, bonus points if you can tie those benefits to something that is a priority for that individual. If you
Hmm.
find a way to say, hey, this is a thing you've been talking about. And if we can meet about this more regularly, here's how we can address that. Or, here's the timeline to potentially solving that problem that you were talking about. So I think that that's a really, really good one.
So kind of buttering up the other person. It's like, oh, we could talk about this, which you like talking about.
Always.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
yeah, that's a good piece of advice too.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of it for my recommendations. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wouldn't be good farm management consultants if we didn't tell people to consider bringing in outside help. Um, if you think that someone moderating or facilitating the conversation would be beneficial, that's something that you could offer to get that person to come to the table. Is like, hey, you know, maybe it's been a hard topic in the past. Like maybe that's their barriers. Maybe they don't want to talk about it because you've tried and failed before. So bringing in some outside help or offering that right at the beginning could be a great option to get people to agree to have a meeting if they know that it'll be structured and moderated. The conversation will remain within the realms, be productive, things like that. So I would say offer to bring in outside help. But help could also be research that you've done. Like if you're trying to get someone to the table, you might bring research that you've done, things you've read, things you want them to read to encourage them to have that conversation. Like those are, that could be considered outside help as well. So again, like I'm kind of harping on about preparation today, but all of these things tie into that. But at the same time, I think that, they can be really helpful on their own as well. So yeah, I would say definitely bring someone in and maybe even offering a representative for both parties. Like if this is a topic that's been hard to discuss in the past, you might say like, hey, I've got this person that I really trust. What if you found someone too, so that we both came to this conversation feeling like things were at a level playing field? Those are things that can be really, really helpful.
Mhm. One little thing to add to that is
Mm.
you can start the conversation with someone, you can bring in outside help. And if that helps get it going, but it's that maybe that person isn't the right fit, then you're always free to find someone else or explore other options there as well. But that would, be a good idea to maybe just get that conversation started.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope this has been helpful to our listeners and viewers. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. Um, and don't forget, please, if you have a comment or question about this, maybe there's a question out there that'll prompt us to take another step back. I can't quite figure out what that would be, but hey, maybe there is. You can find us online, our website. You can reach out to us through our website. That's backswath.com. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and contact us that way. And I guess a little bit of a look forward. Our next episode, we will be having our first guest joining us on the podcast. So stay tuned for that.
Super
And
exciting.
with that, I just want to say thanks again. And
No.
yeah,
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks,
catch
Gavin.
you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of At the Fence Line with Sarah Chambers and Gavin Bedker. If you have any questions or comments about today's episode or would like to get in touch with us, please find us on Instagram at backswath_MGMT or through our website at www.backswath.com. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views, policies, or positions of Backswath or its affiliates. Any reference to specific products, services, organizations, or individuals does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Backswath.